You are watching A News. I'm Leila Masimova. Here's the top stories for today. 6 foreigners killed in sinking of a tourist submarine in Egypt. Around 40 passengers were on board, all are believed to be Russian, according to diplomats. Trump places 25% tariff on imported autos. Canada calls it a direct attack, with Japan describing it as extremely regrettable. Muslims hold overnight prayer in Mecca Grand Mosque to mark Laylat al-Qadr, the night of power. Six people have died after a tourist submarine sank near Egypt's Red Sea resort city of Hurghada. Rescue efforts saved dozens, but the fate of some passengers remains unclear. The submarine, named Sinbad, was carrying 45 Russian tourists along with crew members when it went down on Thursday. The Russian consulate confirmed 4 deaths but did not specify nationalities. Local reports say 29 people were rescued, while officials are still working to determine the status of remaining passengers. The Red Sea, a key tourism destination, has seen similar incidents before, including a boat accident last November that claimed 4 lives. French President Emmanuel Macron has pledged an additional €2 billion in military aid to Ukraine to strengthen the country's defense capabilities. The announcement was made alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and comes ahead of a crucial summit in Paris to discuss further military assistance and potential steps toward a ceasefire.
France will provide some €2 billion worth of military aid to Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron made the announcement alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He joined Macron for the briefing ahead of an important summit on Ukraine's future. The deal will include anti-tank missiles, surface-to-air missiles, armoured vehicles and drones.
Le soutien immédiat à l'Ukraine.
France has from the start provided capabilities that answer to the priority needs of the Ukrainian army forces, and we have prepared additional assistance with MILAN anti-tank missiles, air defense means, such as MICA missiles that are equipped in the Mirage jets that were delivered, and MISTRAL surface-to-air defense missiles. To resist on the front, the Ukrainian army will also receive armoured vehicles, tanks, as well various ammunition, some teleoperated or drones, and we also advanced on the cooperation in terms of satellites and intelligence.
Pour tenir sur le front, les armées ukrainiennes recevront également des blindés.
The pledge comes as Macron accuses Russia of reinterpreting and rewriting recent limited ceasefire deals. Moscow says it ordered a halt on certain targets, but strikes on energy sites have continued, according to Kiev. Zelensky hopes that the US will be able to put pressure on Moscow to agree to a 30-day ceasefire.
Let's hope and believe that the US has enough power to press Russian President Vladimir Putin into an unconditional ceasefire.
The announcement comes just 1 day before a major summit in Paris on Thursday. Around 30 leaders will discuss further military support and potential steps toward a ceasefire. The summit will focus on strengthening security guarantees and coordinating the international response to the ongoing war.
Russian forces launched a large-scale drone attack on Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city, injuring 21 people late on Wednesday, according to local authorities. The strike sparked full fires in the city centre, with emergency services sharing images of firefighters battling flames amid rubble. Officials say at least 12 drone strikes hit the city, located 30 kilometers from the Russian border. A separate drone attack also caused fires in Dnipro, though no casualties were reported there. US President Donald Trump is moving forward with his plan to impose 25% tariffs on important vehicles, set to take effect next week. The move is expected to drive up prices and disrupt supply chains, but Trump says it will boost American manufacturing. Meanwhile, leaders from Canada, Japan and Germany are pushing back, warning of serious economic consequences.
US President Donald Trump continues to push for 25% tariffs on imported vehicles that are set to begin next week on the 2nd of April. Tax hikes will also be imposed on car parts, which are often shipped in from other countries before getting assembled in the US. Industry experts warn of higher prices and disruptions to supply chains. However, Trump says the measure will boost American manufacturing and help raise revenue to offset his promised tax cuts.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go to 25%.
Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is calling the tariffs a direct attack, pledging swift retaliation. He says his government is considering a response that could involve counter tariffs on US goods.
President Trump announced 25% tariffs against our auto industry. And this is a direct attack, to be clear, a direct attack. We will defend our workers. We'll defend our companies, we'll defend our country, and we'll defend it together.
Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba questions whether Japan should receive the same treatment as other nations, given its level of investment in America.
We are one of the biggest investors in the United States. In fact, we are number one. When we consider this, is it right that all countries are treated the same? We have been making this point and will continue to do so.
Head of Germany's Car Industry Association, Hildegard Müller, says the tariff will have serious consequences for everyone involved, including the American people.
The announcement of tariffs on cars produced in the USA from Europe or on supplies is a serious setback for free and rules-based trade, which will have significant consequences for growth, employment, prosperity and jobs on both sides of the Atlantic. The American economy and American consumers will also suffer from the fact that the USA wants to withdraw from the International Trade Partnership.
The US imported roughly 8 million cars last year, accounting for about $240 billion in trade and roughly half of overall sales. Analysts estimate that the cost of a car could rise significantly, with 25% tariffs on parts from Mexico and Canada alone adding up to $4,000 to $10,000.
After U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared sensitive information about a U.S. airstrike in Yemen through a messaging app, the Democrats are now demanding his resignation. The leak has raised security concerns worsened by the exposure of personal data from top Washington officials online.
Our military systems, correct?
Democrats are intensifying calls for US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to resign after it was revealed that he shared sensitive information about a US airstrike operation in Yemen via a messaging app. The leak, revealed in a report by Jeffrey Goldberg in The Atlantic, showed Hegseth using the encrypted Signal app to discuss military airstrikes. He shared details with other senior officials in the Trump administration. These discussions, which included the precise timing, weapons and aircraft to be used, were held just hours before the planned strikes on March 15th. Goldberg's report also revealed that he was inadvertently added to the group chat by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. The chat included key Trump administration figures like Vice President J.D. Vance, Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, raising concerns over potential security risks. Democrats are calling for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's resignation after a leak raised security concerns, with warnings it could endanger US personnel. In addition to the airstrike leak, a separate report by Der Spiegel revealed that personal data, including phone numbers and email addresses of top Trump administration officials, had been exposed online. The data breach added to the growing scandal, prompting further criticism and calls for accountability. While President Donald Trump defended the administration and insisted that no classified information was compromised, the controversy continues to swirl. An internal review is underway, with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz acknowledging the embarrassment caused by the leak, but also downplaying its significance. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Hegseth dismissed the allegations, accusing Goldberg of spreading misinformation and defending the airstrike campaign as vital for maintaining regional security.
And now joining us live from Washington, D.C. is Michael Mallove, former Pentagon security policy analyst. Mr. Mallove, great to have you with us. At the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, both National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratcliffe claimed that no classified information was shared in the Signal group chat. How did you find their performance, and how grave is this breach?
I think, well, first of all, when I was at the Defense Department, we were always advised never to use commercial phones, especially if you're going to be discussing classified information. There are separate channels for that. And even today, with the advancements of technology, there is a means for high-level officials to use dedicated classified systems. And I think that this is something they're going to be looking at. Now, you got to consider that Signal is a platform. And as such, and because because Signal is on other U.S. government phones, that means that the U.S. intelligence community has access to the back door. It has access to the keys to that system, to the encryption, even though it's encrypted end to end. Consequently, that could suggest, because Waltz, the National Security Advisor, did not know how Goldberg, the reporter, got on that spec, might suggest me, at least, that the intelligence community, somebody in the intelligence community with access to the servers of Signal could have inserted him, knowing that Goldberg is anti-Trump and knowing that the Democrats need an issue against the Republicans. And this to me mirrors pretty much what happened during the first Trump administration when they did the so-called deep state went after Flynn, Trump's previous national security advisor. Mm-hmm. This is an effort, I think, to try and discredit Trump administration officials very early on in this new administration, because the intelligence community fears the worst of Donald Trump, and he is no friend of the intelligence community.
Okay, and some analysts believe that National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, despite taking full responsibility for the group chat, is actually the one who should be protected, and the likes of Tulsi Gabbard must be dispensed with. What do you make of his assertion?
I think it's silly. This is Democrats trying to create an issue. They have none with the administration, and when you get into the national security realm, that's fertile ground, because people are not all that familiar with national security restrictions and prohibitions, and this is a targeting of certain national security officials surrounding Trump to send a message by the Democrats. And Gabbard she did not initiate the call. It came out of the National Security Council's office, and as such, that suggests to me that somebody in the intelligence community with access to the servers, an American server, probably put that reporter on, knowing full well that that reporter would go public with what he saw. Now, what he saw and read was something that was not classified as such. There was no revelation of sources and methods, locations, or any of that sort. And it happened just within a few hours. And the attacks on Yemen, notwithstanding whether or not you agree with the attack on Yemen, but the White House considered it to be a huge success. And they've had subsequent attacks since, I think over the last 5 days. But it looks to me like they're going to be reviewing how whether or not to even use Signal or any of those commercial devices any longer. And as I said, the defense community has a dedicated classified system that probably will be employed from here on for the policymakers. And much of the discussion on that thread, read it all, was foreign policy sensitive information. It was not military classified on troop movements or anything of that sort. So it's just meant to embarrass and to show vulnerabilities by Democrats. It's by opponents of the Trump administration.
Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has supervised a test of artificial intelligence-powered suicide drones. That's according to state media, which report he also inspected upgraded reconnaissance and manned aerial vehicles designed for land and sea surveillance. Photographs show a drone striking a tank-shaped target before bursting into flames. It's also reported that he toured newly developed intelligence and electronic warfare equipment, including a large reconnaissance aircraft. He says AI and unmanned systems must be the core of North Korea's future military strategy. Brazil's Supreme Court has ordered the trial of former President Jair Bolsonaro over the alleged coup. It's according to a 5-judge panel which unanimously accepted charges against Bolsonaro for allegedly conspiring or overthrows the government after losing a 2022 election. The 70-year-old, however, says the claims are unfounded.
Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro is set to face trial on charges of attempting to undermine democracy after losing the 2022 election, as well as 5 other charges. The Supreme Court's 5-judge panel ruled in favour of prosecuting him, accusing the 70-year-old and 7 of his associates of plotting a coup and attempting to abolish democratic rule.
There is no doubt, then, that the prosecutor's office has pointed to more than sufficient elements, reasonable and sufficient evidence of authorship, and just cause for receiving the complaint against Jair Messias Bolsonaro.
Soon after the ruling, Bolsonaro held a press conference in Brasilia, insisting the accusations against him have no basis and denies any involvement.
Would we make a coup with Lula's commanders? If it were still my administration, one could speculate in that sense. The commanders would never go on that adventure. To discuss, as my military commander said, constitutional hypotheses is not a crime.
If found guilty, Bolsonaro could face decades in prison, according to reports.
More as a subject. Joining us now live is Diogo Castro Silva, political analyst from São Paulo, Brazil. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Mr. Silva, Brazil's Supreme Court has now decided that former President Bolsonaro will stand trial for allegedly attempting to stage a coup. First of all, could we hear your brief analysis on this?
Yes, so the investigations have started since 2 years ago, and now they reached a point where a formal accusation have been made against Bolsonaro, against other 30 individuals involved in the conspiracy to stay in power.
Mr. Bolsonaro seems to be convicted of his innocence, describing the charges against him as grave and baseless. What does his case tell us about the current political climate in Brazil?
I think you have to see this episode in three layers. The first, I would say, is that the accusations are quite solid, not only against Bolsonaro, but against all involved. The plan coup was being prepared for several months, and so the evidence collected seems to be very strong, and the consensus opinion is that they will be successful in the conviction of the ex-president Bolsonaro. The second layer is the relation between the civilian power and the military. The military have been involved in the last century in several coup attempts, some successful, some not. And this is the first time they are being convicted, or they will be convicted of a coup attempt. So this is a watershed moment as well in the relations between the civilian power and the military. And the third layer is what are the international connections, what will be the repercussions, what will be the involvement of other actors on the far right, namely from the US.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us today and for analysis, Mr. Silva. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan vows illegal action against any attempt to destabilize the country's economy. Speaking at a parliamentary group meeting, he said that Turkey will take firm measures to protect its financial stability. Erdogan says the government is committed to maintaining economic stability and will take necessary steps to counter any threats. Addressing lawmakers from the ruling AK party, he reaffirmed Turkey's determination to fight against what he called economic sabotage. His remarks come as the country continues efforts to strengthen its financial system and safeguard national welfare. The European Union's top foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas has started her Central Asia tour. As EU's top diplomat, she's visited Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan for bilateral meetings. Today, she's chairing a 20th EU Central Asia ministerial meeting in Ashgabat with 4 ministers from all 5 Central Asian republics attending. The talks focus on preparations for the first EU Central Asia summit set for April in Samarkand, as well as key topics such as trade, energy, connectivity and education. Millions in Afghanistan are struggling to access clean water as aid agencies warn of a deepening crisis. Our correspondent Tamim Bahi says more on that.
Afghanistan is facing a worsening water crisis with millions struggling to access clean drinking water and basic sanitation. Aid agencies warn that the situation is critical and requires urgent action. According to the UN Habitat, an estimated 21 million Afghans, more than half of the population, are in desperate need of water, sanitation, and health services. Major cities like Kabul, Kandahar, and Herat are seeing rapidly depleting groundwater reserves, raising concerns over long-term sustainability. Stephanie Luce, a senior official at UN Habitat, says Afghanistan's water infrastructure is in urgent need of investment. Without large-scale intervention, she warns the country's already fragile humanitarian situation could deteriorate further. The crisis was also highlighted by the International Committee of the Red Cross on March 22nd, coinciding with World Water Day. The ICRC reported that 33 million Afghans, around 80% of the population, are now facing severe water shortages. The impact is devastating, affecting people, affecting public health, food security, and the economy. Despite these alarming warnings, Afghanistan's Ministry of Water and Energy has pushed back against the ICRC's findings. Officials claim the government has launched several projects to combat drought, including the construction of new water dams. But as the crisis deepens, the question remains, will these efforts be enough to secure Afghanistan's water future? Aid agencies say more action is needed and time is running out. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
Thousands of Muslims gathered at the Grand Mosque in Mecca overnight to observe Laylat al-Qadr, one of the holiest nights in Islam. The night holds deep spiritual significance, marking what many believe to be the third revelation of the Quran.
Thousands of Muslims hold overnight prayer in Mecca Grand Mosque. Laylat al-Qadr, or the Night of Power, is considered the most sacred night in Islam. It is believed to be when the first verses of the Quran were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. While its exact date is unknown, many Muslims observe it on the 27th night of Ramadan. In Mecca, the Grand Mosque was filled with worshippers offering special prayers and seeking blessings. Many spent the night in deep reflection, believing that prayers on this night carry immense spiritual rewards. Across the Muslim world, similar gatherings took place as people embraced the opportunity for forgiveness and renewed faith during this sacred time.
Thanks for joining us. Keep watching A News for the latest. We'll be back before you know it.